Running fans, jumping fans, throwing fans, all around athletics fans, welcome to Talking in Ovals. I'm Alex Cuesta. Partner in crime over there is Dave Hyatt. What's going on, my brother?
I have a few things that I would like to discuss right off the bat.
Go for
First, a huge shout out to our former guest, Jeff Benjamin,
it. Yes.
for inviting me and you to the New York Marathon Legends Dinner, which I am fortunate enough to going to be attending on November 1st. I mean, I'm going to be meeting like Bob Beeman and, just Ajay Wilson and
the best part is the better
Rogers.
The better half of this tandem is going, so that's good. So we'll get real representation there, not my.
He's going to get me a comp seat there, and I'm just I was just blown away by his generosity. He was an amazing guest and an even better guy, Jeff Benjamin, and also to Scott Ryder, who is the one who got me at his table. I can't wait. Staten Island, here I come. November 1st, New York Marathon Legends Dinner. And also, we were blessed yesterday with an ridiculous Chicago Marathon.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, two absolute monster races. Kept him running. The first guy to ever break 2:01, 2 minutes, 35 seconds. 23 years old, averaged 4:36 a mile. I think his last 5K was like 13:37.
Ridiculous.
And have we ever seen an athlete with more range in our lifetime than Safan Hassan?
Nope.
Runs a 156-800. Just ran her second marathon in 2:13. She is 6 weeks after getting third in the 1500. I mean, she is just an absolute legend. She is, Faith Kipyegon, give her runner of the year, but we've never seen a greater season in terms of range than we saw from Hassan.
Yeah, and I mean, we've talked about this. I think we're in the golden age of running right now. Like, we've experienced some really good times, but right now, just between, Sifan, Faith, Ingebrigtsen, everything going on over the last year and what it looks like it's going to continue because they're all so young, we are really blessed. But before we really get into it, today is episode 59, Monday, October 9th, 2023 is when we are recording. If you like what you hear, give us a like, share, follow, subscribe, rate 5 stars, Spotify and iTunes. Spread this word of mouth. Go find us on the socials at Talking in Ovals. So I want to talk about last week's show real quick. We had retired coach Mike Mulqueen. He's the retired former head coach of track and cross country at Rutgers. Really fun conversation. We went for a while. We went for an hour and a half, and I feel like we could have talked to him for like 3-4 hours. So
he coached like 40 years.
Yeah, he had a wealth of knowledge, and you let him walk down memory road with some of your teammates and stuff like that. So it was a great show. Definitely go give the show with Coach Mulqueen a listen. We just extremely fortunate with all the coaches that we have because they're all a wealth of knowledge. But one thing we don't have this week, we have no PBs, no PRs.
There weren't really many meets though, because it's like you have counties midweek this week, so a lot of teams didn't run anywhere over the weekend because it's that like midweek county. I know Ocean and Monmouth. I know Monmouth is on Tuesday. I think Ocean County might be Wednesday. So there wasn't that weekend where the race. And you know what? I mean, the way some of our past coaches have been teams, we had Westfield and CBA, they're probably tired. Those guys are rolling.
You know what, though? I will give a very famous quote from an extremely great athlete named Vince Vaughn from Wedding Crashers. No excuses, play like a champion. So that I don't want to hear the excuses, Dave. I just want my PRs. But a few more announcements before we jump in. We had our former guest, Jorge Torres, who took over as the meet director for Foot Lockers, and he gave us the official okay to announce that this year's XC Foot Lockers will be at Franklin Park, which is exciting.
Boston.
That is a switch from Boston. It's a switch from Van Cortlandt, New York, but welcome one, and we'll see. Hopefully it attracts more, and Jorge's a great ambassador for the sport. Him and his brother, they're just amazing. So they were on an episode 2. Go listen to them. But Franklin Park, that's going to be exciting. And lastly, but not least, you'll be hearing this mentioned weekly up until it happens. Our good buddy Adam Nalvin, you heard him, coach over at South Brunswick with Wilfredo Rivera. Please go register for the River Rock and Run Relay in Bricktown. The race goes off November 4th. You can go on their Facebook, look it up, River Rock and Run Relay, and go register. It could be a team 5K, I think. Is it 5K?
Yeah.
Team 5K, or
each person runs a mile and a half with baton, or you can run a 5K as an individual. And there's a great spread afterwards at the River Rock. So go and check it out, guys.
Yes, please go register, and we'll be continuing to make that announcement. But after all of that, let's get to this week's show, because I mentioned having great coaches on, and we're fortunate, especially you, Dave, because you're pulling in all the guests. I'm just slacking as always, but you have, great connections. You had a lot of, great people that you've talked to, and this one is no exception. We're fortunate to have on Coach Brian Decker. He's been coaching for 29 years in a bunch of different stops. He was the head men's and women's coach at Ocean County College, and he is the current head XC boys coach at Point Boro, and also head boys and girls coach for indoor and outdoor at Brick Memorial. What's going on, Coach Decker?
Hey guys, how are you?
Doing well. So going to jump right into it with you. And, same question that we ask everybody every single week. What was your spark that got you into running and saying, like, maybe I could do this running thing for a real long time and continue on beyond that?
I was actually a soccer player. And so what had happened was freshman year, because back then they didn't have middle school cross country or any of that. So freshman year, I was at Southern Regional. I played soccer and then did indoor and outdoor. And the distance coach at the time, Charlie Speck, was like, "Oh, come out and run cross country." I'm like, "I've been playing soccer all my life. I don't want to." So sophomore year in the summer, I'm practicing with varsity. I break my wrist.
Oh.
So I'm in a cast. I'm going to miss the whole season. So, Coach Speck at the time finds out, comes and sees me and goes, "We'll go talk to the AD. You can maybe run cross country." It's like, yeah, right. They're not going to let me run in a cast. Go through everything. I ran in a cast, covered, and then ran the rest of the year. And then by sophomore year, I was like, wait a second. I've run the whole year. And all of a sudden, my times got progressively faster. And I'm like, this might be my thing. And then after that, I just kept working at it, and it eventually evolved into something that it really worked out in the end.
Did they forget to tell you that XC is actually a physical sport? Because nobody, we mentioned it a few times, but no one could see what's going on in those back trails a lot of times. Especially if I see someone with the cast, little hand here and there.
No,
I didn't mean it.
No,
Listen,
nobody ever did any of that.
When everyone funnels into that first hill at Homedale after the big, huge start, there's some battles in there, man.
Yeah, no, that was the funny thing. I don't remember ever getting slugged or trying to, get hit or beat up. In
the track, maybe, but.
So that's, it's funny because you're not the first person to let us know that, you weren't a runner. Like most, runners are like, I was doing this sport, I was doing that sport, and I just tried it out. And it's kind of, your situation's pretty cool though. And it kind of sucks, but it's cool at the same time, right? Because you were probably pretty well penciled in to maybe get some varsity time as a freshman in soccer. But, it's fortunate for us in the sport that you got hurt. So then you could jump in and, here you are. So I want to talk about, the rest of your career. Can you give us any great memories and kind of walk us through a timeline of what the rest of your running career was like, and some of the good memories that you had as a runner?
I mean, I was fortunate enough. I went to Monmouth. I ran at Monmouth University, and then
Joe.
transferred. What's up?
Coach Joe.
Yep. It was not Coach Joe when I first started there. It was Coach Flood. John Cooey had just retired, and John Flood took over. And it was actually me, Matt Jelly were roommates.
Another Tom South legend, John Flood.
Yes. So we were both roommates, and I had known him from running through high school. And then, after his freshman year, he left. And then I stayed another year, and then I left. And I went to University of Kentucky, and he ended up going down to Clemson.
Yeah.
So, long story short, just, plugged and worked hard. But just going from, an NEC school to an SEC school, it was big time. It was a big wake up call, but I loved every minute of it. And it was, one of those things that I was fortunate enough and lucky enough that I was able to run at two different places, and then when I was at UK after a while, just got beat up and I just couldn't, my legs and just everything. So I ended up coming back home and actually went and finished at Monmouth and actually ran for a little while for Joe because I had a little bit of eligibility, and that was Joe Capagni's first year of coaching at Monmouth. So, it just was one of those things that, it worked out.
So
What were your disciplines, real quick? What were your race disciplines that you competed in?
Anywhere from, I ran cross country, so running the, 8K and a 10K.
okay,
10K is not fun. I watch people do it on the track, and that's even, crazier to think about. But, running cross and doing a 10K was unique. And then an indoor and outdoor would just run anywhere from 800, 1500, jumping a 3K here and there. But those are so many years ago. It was wild to think back now that,
so
that it happened.
can you explain the big difference between Monmouth and Kentucky, or at that time NEC versus SEC? I mean, obviously it's a much larger school, but like, just how different was the competition, and like how much, like, being at Kentucky, like, was it like did you ever feel like you were like a contributor to the team, or were you just more like a guy who was just kind of
you know what? Yes and no. When it came to track, I was just part of the team because we were pretty good. We had kids that didn't run cross country. I had experience, so they threw me in there. So I felt, I was part of it and compelled to be part of the team, and it was kind of neat. I did have the opportunity to run, SECs and go to NCAA regionals and stuff like that, and just being able to travel and just do different things where you went to different places that I was lucky to go and see, and then you get to the SEC and you're going against Coach McDonald and the Arkansas guys, and it was just like.
Quite literally future Olympians. Like, you could have a few in the other conferences, but SEC, you're guaranteed to see.
It was unreal to see. It was like Alistair Craig and all those guys, and you're just like,
Arkansas were.
I mean, they were just coasting. We were at LSU for SECs, and it was just like, it was a hilly course, and they're just going through it like it was nothing, and people are done and they're already cooling down and getting ready to go do another 10 miles or something. It was, so I mean, the competition wise was just, just seeing, just different things, and then on the track side being there, and you have, a couple guys down the line that, were Olympians and stuff, and you're watching them practice every day, and you're just like, when I was at UK, and I'm like, geez, this is kind of neat to see.
Yeah.
And, and it just, it was just awesome experience to do.
Was it a little intimidating, like looking in like the 8 to 15? Like, if you're not running 150 and under, if you're not running 350 and under in the 15, like, what am what's going on? Like,
I ran 151, 152, and I was like our 7th or 8th man, and I was just like, okay. But it was just good just to go and do it because you're training. I mean, you're working your butt off.
So, Coach, I just want to reassure you, you are really fast. You were really fast. Maybe you didn't feel like you were at times, but it's like to run like, and it's funny. And I brought it up last week. I'll bring it again. We had Johnny Gray on, and we love talking to Johnny. 142, obviously, former American record holder. And he goes to us. He's like, as I'm coaching, I got some 147, 146 guys. And it's like, they're not, they're okay. And it's like, okay, like maybe to Johnny Gray they're okay, but it's like, that to me is incredible.
But like I look at it and then I get into coaching and I see like some of the high school kids run these times, or even one former Chris Marco ran 152, and I'm just like, I worked my butt off in college just to try to get that and just trying to make a team, and you're just coasting through like it was nothing. But he was just a special talent, so I mean, it was good.
Yeah, Marco.
But, I mean, one of the things I did do though is I worked my butt off. I didn't have the talent. I really worked. I took it seriously and I did the best I could. And that was something neat that I really did like.
So was your goal always to be a coach and a teacher? Like, is that what you went to school for, or did that of evolve like over time? And like, did you stay out in Kentucky? Did you come back home?
No, I came back home, and then, everybody goes back to their home roots.
Oh yeah.
So, I went back, I came back in 94 and I was just like, all right, what am I going to do? So I talked to, Charlie Speck, who was coaching at Southern cross country at the time. And I'm like, I just want to help out. and then just, you just do your time, you volunteer, and then it takes over into indoor and outdoor. And so it was kind of neat. And then I had a rapport with the track coach, which was Terry Miller, who was my coach back then. And then I volunteered, and then eventually just got into, a paid position. And then I'm like, well, I can't live off of this. And then I decided to go back into education. And I went to be a special ed teacher. And at that time, they were looking for male special ed teachers.
Oh, yeah. Still are. Thank God.
I kind of just walked into it, and that's how, I became, into teaching and coaching.
Yeah, I remember when you got there, because I was at South, and I graduated 96, and we're like, who's the young guy coaching with a spec? And like, you could just tell that they, that they were really starting to like kind of roll. I mean,
and that was a good thing.
Luckily, we had some talent, and
yes,
so better.
But it was nice that, Charlie gave me the opportunity to at least learn and try to do things. Like, he was a great guy, but we worked well together. So he was like the more laid back and calm guy, and I was more I was younger, I was fiery, and I wanted it, done a certain way. And it was just, we played off each other. I remember the one kid saying that, that I had a fiery demeanor, as a coach. And I think back, and I did. And it's something that's pretty funny to think back on.
And I think you need a little bit of both in coaching, right? I think in track and cross country, you have so many different personalities, so many different kids. Like, you want to talk about like diverse and stuff, like XC especially is like there's so many different styles. Then you get to the track, and you have your former football players, and then just like your distance runners who are a different breed in their own. And you need a little bit of everything. You need that fiery person, but you also need that calm demeanor. And and I like the way like you talked about, like, you have to do your time, because if you're young right now and you're listening, that's how it works. Like, and it's a young men and women's game in the beginning, because you do have to work. You do have to sit there and volunteer, not make any money, and, really just put in years and a few years. Like, it doesn't happen quick, because especially if you're at a place like you were with Coach Speck, an established coach that wasn't going anywhere. You know what I mean? So it's like, you got to put in your time with those good coaches, learn, sit back, be yourself. But every once in a while, just, it's a problem I have, because I have a mouth. I like to talk. Sometimes just shut up and learn. And don't give them your ideas. Just listen and take the advice. and
even if you volunteer somewhere, gain everything you learn from every coach, because you might not coach there, but you might coach somewhere else. So take bits and pieces from everybody who you've ever worked with, who is older and has done it before. Use everything.
And that's what I really did, because, in cross country, I dealt with Charlie, and it was great, and I loved it, just learning a lot of things. And then I went to track and field, and I learned under, Terry Miller. And Terry had a unique way about him. But the one thing I learned and carried on is when I became, track coach, is he would be able to flip things and do things on the fly, where, there's coaches that you go to a dual meet, they're running the same thing every time, and he would see some and change it up, or we get a score in the middle and we change it up. And that was something I learned very young, which I didn't really think about until I really got into coaching. And I was like, okay, this team is going to put these same people in the same order, and all we got to do is make one little switch, and it changes.
Yeah, I feel like, go ahead, Coach.
When I was in high school, like, it was the same thing. Like, we would have something, but it was like so loose. Like Mr. O'Leary was like, all right, this can change on an instant. Don't we're going to look at the score after every event. Had out his pen, his notebook, and it was always changing. We're like, hi, boom, 800. I'm like, I wasn't supposed to run that. Get your ass on the line and go. Okay.
It's like you're a baseball manager, right? Like, you're looking at the game, and like you kind of go by feel, and you sit there and you look, and you're like, how fresh are your legs? Don't care. Get on the line. We need points. Don't go to win. Run hard. Get top 3. That's all I want you to do. Like, there's strategy that goes into these.
Yes. And, and people don't realize it. And then some people, they do, but it just, you got to change it up a little bit. And it was just kind of neat learning from that aspect, and then, I lucked out with my experience that, a couple people were trying to get me into Toms River, and I ended up taking over the Toms River East boys cross country program. Ohio contest. I mean, East South rivalry was insane, and and
mid '90s, it was big time. Yep.
Yeah, and that leads into, where, I was only there for a little bit because then they changed coaches, Schrader, and I was in district and blah, blah, blah. But because my experience at Southern, and then I go to East for a little bit, I build a rapport with Mark O'Leary. Then I'm at Memorial for, number of years coaching boys and girls or whatever. And then I get a phone call one day in the summer, and it's Coach O'Leary from South going, I'd really like you to come aboard and take over the track programs at South, and then, work with me in cross country, and then I'll take, and then you can take it over. And, and I still talk to O'Leary about a lot of things. And the first comments, I was like, have you been drinking? And he just started laughing. I'm like,
might have been possible, but
it probably was, but it was just an honor because there's so many other people out there in the world that would live and die trying to get the job at Toms River South just based on the tradition.
Oh yeah.
So when I took over that, it was just wild.
I remember because, like if you ran at Toms River South, it's a family. Like it's like, and O'Leary and Hef, it mattered to them who took over that program. It was extremely important. They had blood, sweat, and tears for 30-something years. And and they had such pride in everything that they've ever done and run. And like when they retired, we had like 400 people. This like big hall. Like, so it mattered.
Yeah, and I was there, and they introduced me, and I was just like, it was wild.
I gave a speech. I was a little tipsy, but whatever. But it was like you got the approval of like everyone because O'Leary and Hef wanted you. Then we're like, all right, if that's who they want, and it was a big deal because like we were like I remember
because you don't want to leave a program that's successful with somebody that's gonna like, So I mean, going in, I was like, wow, this is big shoes, and I knew I wasn't going to ever fill their shoes, but it was just an opportunity. I was like, all right. And then when I took over the cross country job, I had O'Leary as an assistant. He's like, well, don't you want somebody else? I'm like, no. I said, you give me this opportunity. And he's so damn knowledgeable. Like out of the coaches, and I can name a bunch of different coaches, he is by far one of the brightest coaches I ever dealt with. And I still talk to him today. Every week here and there, and I see him at meets. Like I still touch base with him because I had that rapport with him, and and we went and traveled together with Kyle and stuff in the past. And when I was there, and then it was just and just going wow, and I still talk to him, and I still pick his brain at times. Just because it's neat, because I mean, you think about how transition of old school it is. Like some of the workouts, because we've talked about it. Like some of the workouts you do back then is just,
I know
we couldn't do it anymore.
It could be child abuse considered now. Some of that could be considered child abuse.
I did those workouts. Yes,
the changing of athletes.
Yeah,
and then you have technology and some other things. So it's like, all right. But I mean, I remember some of those workouts, and I'm like, wow, this would be great to do. And I'm like, these kids couldn't handle that stuff.
No.
It's not a knock. It's just
right. It's
the way it is. Right. So it's kind of nice to, aspect of just seeing how the transformation of coaching and, how sometimes when you're old school, you have to change a little bit.
Right.
It's funny too, because like I just think back of my time when I was running at Manchester, and Dave's probably not gonna be happy about this. You might not be, Coach Decker, but when I was there, it was all about North and East. It like South was like good, but North and East had like the bigger names at the time, and me being the top guy at Manchester at the time, those were the ones I was gunning for. And I think it was like for my period, once I left, it seemed like South started to really come back again and really start to make a big jump there. So it was like, it's interesting just thinking back at it. It's like,
right. But I mean, when I ran at South, at South in the mid '90s, I didn't even know that Manchester had a cross country team. So I mean,
yeah, no, we listen. It took a little bit. We were definitely on the track, but in XC we weren't as strong. On the track, we whooped all your asses a lot of the times. So
late 90s, late 90s,
late 90s, best
after
team in
my
the
time.
state. Just
After
throwing
my
that out
time.
there. Best team in the state, one of the
They
best
were.
in the country. Just throwing that
They were
out
good.
there.
that 98 squad was legit. So, coach, so you're at South, you're coaching track, and you know, as an alum, like we were just thrilled. You got to coach some absolute monsters. I mean, holy shit! Like you were coaching guys like, and I remember like there was a contingency of us who went to media champ spring track junior year for Marco. What was it like to just be there at that time? You're like, I have these kids. Like, I mean, those are like once in a lifetime kids.
You know, it's special. And then, you know, you see alumni and you see how that goes, but it's not until after, and then you're like, oh my God. And then you think back, because now, you know, I mean, Mark was older and you're thinking about, wow, you know, back then what we were able to accomplish. It's pretty neat because we did have a run and it was a wild ride. Like, you know, Marco running 407, you know,
junior.
You know, and we, you know, that next year he could got into Penn at the mile. Kyle could have gotten the 3K, and I said it's up to Marco at that point, and Kyle and him, and they're like, we want to run a DMR, and that's all I wanted to do. Like as a coach, you always want to go to Penn. Like two things: one, run in the DMR, and two, the 4x8. One of the two. And South always had that tradition of the 4x8. I entered that. I entered the DMR. And then, you know, those guys individuals, and they're like, what do you want to run? And I was like, we want to run a DMR because that's, you know, that's the big one. I mean, you know, it's sad it's not the big one at South because the history is, hey, they won a championship of America back in the 70s.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
You know, so it was kind of neat, but that's, you know, what they wanted to do. And, you know, when you have, you know, 407 miler, you had, you know, Kyle, who was, you know, 908 2-miler, but could run 413, 158, was on a relay, could run 52, you know, and then I had Brett, who as a freshman was just go through the motions and just, you know, that was a kid as a coach you see as a freshman who is just a freshman, just, you know, just a freshman that just goes out and runs and then just each year just progressively get better. And then by the time he's a senior, I'm like, I need to rely on you. Can you get it together? I mean, and by the time he was a senior, he won the county championship. He ran 155 for me. So watching that kid, I mean, yeah, you have Kyle and, you know, Marco who had the talent, but you had somebody that just, you know, reminded of somebody who may not have the talent, but worked his ass off for 4 years to see that. Like that was a cool experience to watch that. So I had him on there and, you know, we're going up to indoor nationals. We're 5th in the country. We go to Penn relays. You know, I get to travel with Marco. We're out at, the indoor Brooks when they had it at indoor. You know, he gets invited to Milrose. We're up at, you know, Army a few times. Kyle qualifies for nationals for cross country out in San Diego. You know, so I mean, it was a good run and a lot of fun. You know, but it was just, you know, a great time at that time with everybody's support. And you know what? Their parents are supportive. They didn't get in the way. They just let me coach the kids. You know,
South
and that's,
parents are awesome because it's like,
yes, and you know, and that is. They, you know, and South sometimes gets a bum rap, but their parents are very supportive. They just let you coach. They don't get in the middle of you and question you. Why are you doing this with my kid? Why? You know, where, you know, you look at that, it was 10 years ago, give or take. Oh, wait, maybe longer than that.
Maybe a little bit longer,
I think.
A little longer, but now you think of that and now parents' involvement in, I mean, it's wild to, you know, to think back that, you know, and any of those parents, you know, could have been like, hey, you're doing the wrong thing. And I've been like, well, you know, maybe I am, but I'm not. But then you look and they let me do what I was supposed to. And end result, like, you know, I can't complain.
Pretty good memories. Yeah.
Marco goes to Notre Dame and Kyle goes to Michigan.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
I think you did something right there. So you talk, you know, you mentioned all the success that you had at South with all that. You also coached at OCC, Ocean County
Mhm.
College.
Yes.
Juxtapose the difference between, coaching at high school and having all this success and now going to OCC, which, there's no knock on being a runner over at a community college because you have to really want it in order to
See,
continue to run there. So talk about your time coaching over at OCC and what that was like.
that's the knock right then and there. There's nothing wrong with a junior college, but you try to convince a high school kid who thinks he's better than that. Not that he's not better than that, but you have an opportunity that you're going to run. You will be effective, and you can go to school for free if you have the grades. You're able to do it, and it was good experience. I'm glad I did it. However, COVID hit.
Yeah.
Once COVID hit, not just you know cross country programs, but a lot of the junior colleges took a hit, and trying to get it going again. It was just it was wild. I mean, the first year I threw a guys team together. There was a handful of Brick Memorial kids that I coached previously, and a couple other kids, and we were fifth in the country. It was neat to do, and I'm glad I did it. But at the end of the day, it was just getting harder and harder with the numbers, and just having to know if we were going to have a program. And that was one of the questions brought up this year. Were we going to run a program? Were they not? Were they? And we couldn't get a definite answer. And I was just like, I can't sit there and try to get people, if you're going to tell me we may not have a program, or start the training and say, okay, no. So that's why I was like, okay, so I mean, it was cool. I mean, I loved coaching the college just because, at the college level, you want to be there.
Well, especially OCC, like those are kids who are super dedicated because they don't have to run. They're like, it is their choice to run at that level. So you have great kids who just want to be there.
And it's hard because you got to be a cross country runner because they don't have track.
Yeah.
So you're only getting a kid that loves cross country enough to say, okay, I'll go and do it. And then indoor and outdoors, we're like, all right, you got to take some time off, and then you're just going to run on your own and, wait till we start training. So, I mean, it was cool. It just, after COVID, it took a beating, and just, and then, so what had happened was, after that, there was, opportunity at Point, and I jumped on that.
So quick, go ahead, Dave.
Back to OCC. How much did you talk to Eddie Baines, like, after, because he was there?
Actually, I talked to Eddie a lot. When I was at South, like, it was good having him there because we had a rapport. I knew him from high school when I was at South, so it was kind of nice. So it made it easier. So when I talked to him about taking it, we were talking about different things and just the ins and outs, and it was a good buffer and a good person to have to discuss things. About the college itself in general, and then just go from there. And then, and then was, I did talk to Eddie about it though.
It is crazy to me because I feel like if you could just go to college fairs, have the OCC table for XC at college fairs, you can get a handful of those, not your Marcos, not your Kyles, but your next tier, your 430 guys, your 420 guys, your 10 flat guys that are diamonds in the rough, that some of them do go to college, run D3, D2, and then they're competing at nationals because they just haven't had, some of their training wasn't right, or they just haven't matured enough. They didn't become men yet. And if you just had a table there saying like, hey, if you're going to come to OCC anyway, and you were a runner, why not? Just jump in. I'll train you like a collegiate athlete, and let's see what we could do. But I feel like that's a missed opportunity I feel like there's a lot of community colleges probably have this missed opportunity where you could tap into these athletes that didn't have any plans of going away to school, maybe wanted to do a few years at community college first before they went off to the school of their choice. Because I know New Jersey, they have the STARS program. I don't know if that's still there, but it was the STARS program.
It is. And that's trying to sell them to the kids and be like, you can go here for free. The other thing is just even having kids that might be out of state that are interested. We don't have dorms. So now you got to try to find it. Like, there's a couple schools out in Midwest that are always good. They have dorms.
Not just community college have dorms now. They have dorms over here, and we have a pretty good. I don't know about the program now, but it was up and down. It was pretty good at time. Like DCC was pretty good at for a little bit. One of my former coaches was the coach there for a little while. So, I mean, it's a challenge. And then you hear about these JUCOs that have football programs, and it's like, wait a minute, we can't get a consistent XC program, but there's ones that have football programs. Like it's.
Oh no! So I mean, it was neat. I'm glad I did it. I mean, it's neat. I just wish it would have been, a little bit more feasible with coaching, teaching. Like you can't get to everything. Like, the kid that took over right now is Brandon Szymanski, who ran for me at Brick Memorial and ran for me at OCC and then went to Stockton. Awesome. So he just graduated. He's like, what do I do? I'm like, why don't you apply? So he's doing that just to get experience, just to, do it, which is kind of nice to see. But it just trying to get, but motivation wise, you didn't have to really motivate because they're already there and you're at college now. You're not a high school kid where you're going to get babied, mom and dad can't do everything for you. Like in high school where it's like, okay, like you're college now, you need to learn how to adapt to certain things.
Certainly. So, so you go from there, you're now at Point Boro. What's it been like doing XC over at Point Boro? How fun has that been?
Love it. It is, man, at South in 2012, we had a team that won South Jersey Group 4, and that was a special group. For cross country, this is a special group. I got hired late. So I met with the team in July. And I'm like, all right, here's the game plan. Tell them who I am. Some of the guys do know me because I lifeguard in Bayhead, so some of them work with me. So it was kind of easy, so I could at least talk to those guys. But one of the first things was, all right, we were going to practice in the summer. How many days? And most kids are like 2-3 days, blah blah blah. Not these guys. We went 5 days a week in the summer, starting in July. So Monday nights at Homedale, and then Tuesday through Friday, 6:30 or 7 in the morning at school. Like it just, it's just a very good, unique group that I don't have to motivate. They're all motivated themselves. We all have the same game plan, the same goals.
And that tells me you have a dedicated group of seniors and juniors, right? Especially we'd be able to do that in the summer because summer practices are big. Your seniors and juniors going to scoop up the freshman, sophomore that maybe can't drive, helping out some parents that maybe can't do that because, people work in the summer practices are usually during the day or early morning. So that just says you have a dedicated and really strong group of juniors and seniors that are willing to do what they need to do.
The only cool thing, and it's different, like, Dave, you'll know how South unique it is. Like people don't realize like South is a special place to me and just everything in general, the way the school atmosphere is, the school spirit and everything else. Point is the same exact way. It's just a smaller school. This town is, the school's centrally located. Everybody bikes.
I live 3 blocks from the Point Boro High School.
Yeah. All the programs support everybody. It's a great.
I mean, the wrestling is legendary under the light. Legendary underneath the light over at Point.
So I mean, it's a fun aspect of being there and knowing the kids all want to be successful. And then you have the community, you have the school administration, you have the parents. The parents are so supportive of everything that, I have tried to bring in that I'm not, as a new coach, people, most people did not know me. A couple of kids did, but they don't know me and they've all accepted me. They like how we're building the program a little bit, how we're carrying on. So I mean, it's just, it was a great opportunity and I love every minute of it. Like I don't go to practice going, oh boy, what's going to happen today or who's not. Like they're there and I'm not worried about that.
Like I said, I live about 3 blocks from Point Boro High School. I see the boys running everywhere. The other day I was driving with my fiance and they're all running on the road. I'm like, Coach Decker,
sometimes I'm out there biking with them. I follow them just to go on the run, just to, just because it's neat.
Yeah. they've always had really good teams, but having someone like Devin Hart just really puts the whole school really well. And then last year you had Blake breaking 150, and talk about awesome parents. The Slavinskys, man, Dave Slavinskys and his wife are great. They're good guys. He coached Ian Hahn when Hahn was in high school. So like they're just and his sister's good. But it's a great town, small town. My stepson just graduated from high school here, and you're right. Like everyone biked. Like he got his license, but he's like, we're still going to bike to school every day. Because that's with the same friends since kindergarten.
So, quickly, how difficult is it going to be now? Because you're also, winter and spring head coach over at Brick Memorial. It's when I coached, and I know when Dave coached, you make a connection to the kids. Like you really do. And especially through XC. XC is a different sport. You're a family.
Yeah.
You're a small family. So how is that going to be, especially going to meets? Is it going to be really hard to not go to your boys and try to coach them up a little bit as well? And while coaching yours, what's that going to be like, having to switch the black and white?
The one thing is cross country is the best season to coach because it is there. Everything's right there. You're either running a 5K or a 2 mile. Yep. Where track, you have to do so many different dynamics and trying to figure out who's going to run here and that. It will be different, but at the same token, I'll support those guys any way I can. But again, I don't really see them as much. The only time I'll really see them would be at county relays or short conference, state sectionals, because 2 and 3 are together. So, I mean, that's the one good thing, but bad thing is that, I won't see them all the time, but, I'll be in touch with them. That's for sure. But it's just one of those things that and I told them and the parents, it's one season at a time, because the other side of it is that, for winter, there's no openings. So it's kind of hard to go to a position that
isn't there.
There isn't there. And that's what you try to explain to people. And it's like, but I mean, listen, I've been in that situation before, and, you just do the best you can with them and be supportive, and then get ready. And after a while, get ready for cross country.
It's going to be the text from one of your athletes in the middle of winter going, hey, what do you think I should do here? Whatever coach told you to do, stop it. You don't want to step on the other coach's toes. That's the tough part.
But it's just one of those things. It's I can't. They brought it up. I can't worry about it. We have at least maybe 6 more weeks or so of cross country. We still have a task on hand. What goal one was to win B South. We won B South last week. Nice. So that was the first time since 2018. So that's an accomplishment. Next week, this week on Thursday, we have counties. We want to be in the mix, with North and Southern. So it's kind of nice. Short conference is short conference. Nobody's touching CBA. So, at the end of the day, do we run people? Do we not? But then sectionals is our big meet. Out of all the years, Point Boro has never won a state sectional title.
Wow. In the XC?
In XC.
You know what? You're right, because they've obviously had individual champs with Devin Hart.
They've never put it together. So, that's what I said aboard when I first got hired. I'm like, I want to win a title. And if you guys think you can do it, we got to put the time in and figure it out. And, I mean.
And the biggest part is, 5 through 7, 4, 5, 6, 7. They don't realize. Everyone looks at the top 3 and they want to be top 3, but it's like,
I know that. I have a solid 3. Yeah. My 4 is good. And then from 5, 6, and 7, it rotates every week. And I'm like,
they don't realize their importance. You guys need to PR all the time, please, because you guys are why we win. 1, 2, they're going to do what they do. 3 is going to do they don't realize and it's tough because a lot of the times those ones down there, maybe you have a senior or so down there that gets it, but they're usually your strong sophomores or something like that. And it's crunching them. Come on, guys, you guys are the reasons why we'll win.
Yeah, no, we and I haven't from my my top 3 been the same 3 the whole year. It's more my 4, 5, 6, and 7, even 8 have rotated from anywhere from 4 to 8, and it's like, geez,
You got to play McFarland USA the night before the race so they can see how important the last the fifth man is for varsity.
It's like,
no, but I'll tell you what I mean. But like, because I always follow obviously Jersey and Ocean County, and you guys should be in the mix on Wednesday.
Absolutely.
The Oaks brothers are off to a great start. This is probably Point's best team that I can remember in XC, and it's fun to see. It's rare that a B South team can kind of put themselves up in the mix.
Could be in the mix, yes.
It's just great to always see. Usually it's your. I mean, obviously Southern is dominated for years.
Yeah.
Can shout out to Coach Baker, does a hell of a job there.
Yes.
But like it's just cool. Like smaller schools have a chance to win it.
We're a Group 2 school that's going to be competing with North and Southern. Big
awesome.
Schools from Group 4, which is fine. And then, like even just the other day talking to Griff, from Manchester, like, we have our dual meets. It's, dual meets are, man, I mean, I like, when I was at A South coaching at Memorial, we had the divisional meets. I like those.
I love it too.
There's coaches that like dual meets, and, and me and Griff are just like, he's like, and then, going with Griff, I mean, he's a great guy. Like, we went back and we ran in high school together. Then he ran at Mississippi State. I was at UK. He got his first coaching job at Jackson. I was at Southern. So we had dual meet battles, and we were reminiscing the other day of like how long we've been in it together. Yeah. And now I'm in B South, and here we are trying to compete for a B South title.
He's probably like, "Get out of B South! Like, get out of here! What are you doing? Why are you here? We were gonna get out of here."
Oh yeah, but it was just neat to experience that. I'm like, wow, we're back, continuing that we started so long ago, and that we're still doing it.
Yeah, Coach Griff's a great guy. I couldn't be happier that someone's like leading alma mater. Griff's awesome. We had him on. He was fantastic. But yeah, he's a funny guy. But so you're focused here. You have your goals. You have everything set for XC. I mean, so do you plan on? So I don't know how to put this, because right now you're pulled in two different directions. So it's like, I don't want to like ask you to like make a game plan either way, but it's like, how long? Because I know if it's me, if I'm pulled in so many different directions, like I'm gonna haywire. You know what I mean? Like, so like I can't imagine that's easy on you.
Yes and no. The pulling, I mean, it's one of those things like I think about, but I really don't, because I'm in the moment right now. And my main goal since July, since I started, were the kids at Boro. Yeah. And that's going to go all the way through until our last meet. If it's groups, if it's meet of champs, whatever. And then we go from there.
And I don't blame you, because I loved coaching too. So if I'm in your position, I'm going to coach as often as I can, wherever I can. So I don't blame you at all for what you like. It's just coaching's fantastic.
Yeah. So, I mean, after that, it's just we wait and see.
Yeah.
Like that's the biggest thing. Like I can't say, yes, I'm going there. No, I'm not. Like it's just.
And I wouldn't want you to say otherwise on this show either way at all.
Yeah. Yeah. That I wouldn't do anyway. Sorry, guys. But like,
all good.
I just haven't really thought about it. And, I love where I am right now.
And that's beautiful.
And that's the greatest thing, because I have a group of distance kids that are into it.
Oh, yeah.
And that makes it the hardest part.
Yeah. Yeah.
Meaning like, it's easy to move on. I've done it a few times. Sometimes it's harder than others, but like, it's like, because the kids move on, kids now transfer out of schools, and, and they're supposed to be a key. And, so, I mean, it's the same thing, but, it's harder when you have a group of kids that are all into it than if you have, a handful of kids and they're just like,
of course,
they're just there. But even the kids that I have right now that are there, they're working hard, and that's all I ask them to do. Like, practices aren't as long as they used to be. Like, Dave would probably tell you how long practices were back then with and
Well,
I
there's no
remember
more days of coaches driving us home
Listen,
anymore. Like that doesn't happen anymore, really. So it's like
Yeah.
coaches used to be able to drive us home.
Yes,
He was
yeah,
my ride home every day at around
exactly.
7.
Like, yeah, and that's, and now it's like, all right, I'm asking you for an hour and a half of your time. Like, that's it.
And they're asking you, Coach, I'm going to miss the late bus, so I got to get to the late bus.
yeah, I mean, and that's just a changing of the times. It just after COVID, or even, even with the kids now, Strava. Like,
How do you feel about Strava?
I'm old school. I don't know anything about it. I don't know. So the kids are explaining. They're like, "Oh, we post this." I'm like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa!" Like, Dave will be the first to tell you. Like, back in the day, we were not telling. There's no way O'Leary is telling other coaches and other kids what they're doing.
No,
I never told kids what they were doing. There's no way in hell.
We didn't talk to the other teams. It was like,
No, exactly.
like you will not talk to you don't like anybody. We are one team. We are a family,
Yes.
and that's it.
I have kids posting, well, we did this today. And now you have, coaches looking at, our athletes or my athletes going, oh, we saw that you did this the other day, or you did this. And I'm like, oh, you guys are killing me.
And it was funny because we had MySpace. That was ours. MySpace, my thing in high school. And we used it to shit talk each other from the other towns. Like, that's all we did. Like, we weren't like, we were still like only semi-friendly. And the only reason I ran with Roger Hopper is because of Ian Hahn. And that's the only reason I was friendly with Hopper from Lacey, because that was a connection. But similar way, like, we were friendly-ish at the line, like, good luck. And then you kind of hate each other.
No, but after that, there was none of that. Like,
Oh,
no, like you watch guys now, they're like buddies. They're hanging out afterwards. They're talking to them beforehand, and then they're cooling down together. That, like,
I wouldn't cool down with the other team. Like, I was nice to Andrew Brodeur and Monroe Kearns. I think that was really it. And me and Craig Forries knew each other, just because he was Craig Forries. I wanted to know Craig Forries.
Nope. Never have I ever warmed down with a kid or never.
It wasn't even the thought.
That was the same that happened to Chris Marco. So Marco goes through his spiel the whole, through his junior years. Nobody, people would talk to him, but really not. Do whatever. He wins Meet of Champs. He's got an entourage getting ready to run. He's like, what do? I go, did they warm up with you or talk to you during the season? He goes, no. I said, then just go away from him. Tell them you're not going to talk to them. Like,
I got my teammates. Leave me alone.
Yeah, it just, now it's like, okay, like, it's almost like they've lost that little edge of just wanting to be competitive and beat somebody.
Which is weird because in college, it definitely comes back. Like, you kind of hate everyone else. Like, you're more friendly-ish in college because obviously it's different. It's a job interview. College is a big job interview because you all want to get there eventually.
And it's all business.
And you're running with the same kids in college most of the time. You see each other at a ton of meets. So it's a little bit different there. But even then, it's very rare that you cool down. It's usually if you're like friends from home already. Like, if you were high school buddies, then you might cool down with another team. Right. But you're still cooling down and warming up with your own teammates. You kind of hated everyone else already in college too. Like, it was very similar.
It's very different now, but I mean, like, something's working because kids are running ridiculously fast now. So let me ask you that: has your coaching had to change with the times?
Yes.
4:20 now isn't what like. That's not, you might be in the third heat at the Meet of Champs if everyone for 20 hours. So, I tried to evolve as a coach.
I do. I there's still things like I like to do, but I've also changed a little bit more. This cross country season in the we obviously do our long runs. But I didn't even go as long as I did. Like, I've kept them a little bit lower this year. Like, in the past, I've gone 15, 16. I haven't. I've gone 12, 13, but at a little quicker pace. I still do, I still do tempos because that was something that was installed from that I still love to do. We do a lot of progression runs in the summer. And then, as the season's gone, we've done, a little bit more some speed stuff this year. Just sometimes it's just changing it up because it just, you look at seeing how some of the kids have run in the past, looking at what the kids did at Point and just trying to, and seeing what they've done, just change it up a little bit. But yeah, you definitely, I've adjusted more than I have in the past.
So do you have you noticed too, when I was in school, like you didn't wear your spikes that much or your train. Have you noticed that the change in the shoes has really helped tremendously? Like the kids be able to bounce back, all these super and
I didn't do a speed workout in spikes until college, so this is a weird phenomenon. Like
it's funny to see some kids, like I have kids at Brick Memorial and they have all the new gadgets and different things, and they have training racers and trainer this, and then you have somebody at Point, they just wear their trainers. Sometimes we bust out in the spikes, but it just varies. It's so funny to see that, that they'll, kids and parents will spend all kinds of money on a shoe that you don't even know if it works. Like, and they're so light that you can put your foot through them. I've seen people do that. And then what are you doing? Like it's definitely, technology. Like even Adidas just came out with a brand new marathon shoe that's $500. Like
Jesus, who's going to buy that?
Somebody will.
A lot of people will.
A lot of people will think they're going to run a PB because they have the shoe.
I mean, if I'm on the borderline of becoming a pro, maybe.
But that's the problem with some of this now is they see this and they think it's going to give them the edge. Yeah. So they're going to try to take advantage of it.
So the one thing I'll ask you, because we've always talked about, we talked about the changing athlete and things like that. Have XC athletes changed that much? Because, distance runners have always been head cases, but they've always been tough as nails. So it's like, you could talk to any head coach of any high school team. Their distance guys are the toughest guys because, they fight through, they're grueling, the workouts suck, and they just battle. From your experience over the past 30 years, have they changed all too much? Because again, they've always been, we've always been a little neurotic and always been.
But yes and
how
no.
much has changed there?
But yes and no, because you have some kids that are hard-nosed kids and they'll do it. And then you have kids that they go through the motions and, it could be like we're standing right next to each other and the last 50 meters and he doesn't want to go after somebody, and that's just part of it is somewhat the work ethic. And sometimes people just aren't that tough and they don't want it that bad.
Yeah.
Where you have some guys that, that last 50 meters, they're going to do whatever they can to close out the deal, not to get past. And if they do, at least they're trying.
Yep, the grit. It's all about the grit at the end.
And that's something. I mean, there's some kids that are tough as nails out there, though. I mean, you look and you're like, oof.
Listen, you don't run as fast as kids are now without being tough. But I definitely feel like, and I think it's a good change from a coaching perspective over the years. Like more coaches now do put more of an emphasis on making sure that their kids do get rest. And not every day has to be hard. Like when I was in high school, like every distance run was like the last 3-4 miles, we're going to just race. Yeah. And I feel like, like that wasn't always the best approach. But so I definitely feel like the more emphasis on rest has certainly helped these kids be fresher and ready to go. And also I do going back to what you said, I feel like the lack of dual meets has also helped the top level kids because they have one meet.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of helps. I mean, nothing against the dual meets that we had, but I mean, we pretty much tempoed most of them, and it was just like, all right, what are we getting out of it? And, where, even though you're tempoing, you're still doing stuff and, where you have to change your racing plans of different things. Where at least if you have one divisional meet, here you go, this is where we're at. And then you can pick and choose different meets that we're going to, like we this year at Point, like they used to race all the time and race dual meets. So I was like, we're going to cut back. So, we went to Thompson meet in the beginning of the year for the 2-miler. Then we took a weekend off and then I took them up to Rhode Island. We went up to Ocean State. We ran well up there. had another dual mate. We were going to run Homedale, but it just kept raining constantly. I'm like, we got to like chill a little bit. This weekend, we didn't do anything. We're going to get ready for counties, and now with our dual meets being over, we could have 5 or 6 more weeks of racing hard where now it's going to be quality runs. So, I do rest them a lot more, just because sometimes the kids they can't, I don't want to say can't handle it, but they need a day.
I think we're discovering less is more sometimes. Like there is always that sometimes less is
just
more.
Mentally, sometimes the kids aren't all there and just sometimes mentally tough. So, like I'll pick and choose now, be like, all right, here we go. You know what? You're going to take it. Not everybody, but a group of you guys, you're going to only go 6 days this week. You want to pick up an extra day and just go 5, go ahead. Yeah. But nothing like it used to be where, all right, your off days, you're going to go 8 and then 15 or something like that. So, but it also depends on the kid.
Right.
Instance, Brodor could run 70, 75 miles a week.
He was crazy.
Yeah.
He was just a machine. He was just a machine. Hence why he went to Duke.
Yeah, Marco could handle that stuff. Now, Kyle, we brought down a little bit because in the past he was a little nicked up at times. So so it just depends on, where you're going. Like this summer, most of the top of the guys, the top they got to was like just under 60 per week. Where in the past I'd be like, all right, let's try to go a little bit farther. But, I was just like, all right, we're going to maintain between, probably 3 or 4 weeks of 55 to 60. And they all felt good. So that was kind of, and some of it would be 7 days, some would be at 6 days.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just adjusting and, but also having a communication with the kids. That's the biggest key because, you could say, all right, I want to do this. But if they're saying, okay, I can't handle it, but thinking they can, and then they're hurt, like that's something I've always been. I always, want to make sure that there's an open line of communication. So if you're hurting that day or something's nicked up, I need to know. Otherwise, we can't move forward because you're going to try to do something and then you're going to defeat everything. You're not going to be able to race. You're not going to help us. And, so it's kind of neat with that aspect.
You don't want the kid to come up to you saying, Coach, I think I have shin splints. And then it's a stress fracture because he's been ignoring it for 3 weeks. Like That's the last thing you want. So you mentioned Homedale. You were the meet director for Shore Coaches. I want to just know more of, what the process, how was that like meet directing? What was that experience like? And how often have you done it? Do you plan on doing it more?
I have done it for, I think this is my 13th or 14th year I've done it. I'm on the executive committee for Short Track Coaches Association. So back in the day when, Steve Theobald was president and Jackson coach, he's like, hey, do you want to be involved? And I was like, okay. And I took that on. I was like, oh, and then I was like, wow. So, I like it. It is grueling. It has its moments. It's usually, knock on wood, it's been smooth. This year it was a little bit of an issue, and there was a lot of different things, but, we learned, but it could have been solved. But the same token, I had coaches complaining that we shouldn't be using what we do. We've been doing the same thing for the last 25 years of the meet. It just, there was some inexperience in some areas and that caused some things and the weather, we've had rain and we've been able to handle it. It just didn't bode well this year.
Yep.
And so I took a beating, but what can you do? We did the best we could with it. Corrections were made and just different things, but it was just one of those things. It was just, there was issues, but I'm not going to throw people under the bus. It's not fair to them. So I took the hits. I was the meet director and, hey, it is what it is.
Things happen.
Live and learn.
Things happen. And that's the bottom line. It's one meet, one race. Everyone's fine. As long as no one got injured, then that's fine. It doesn't matter. In the end, whatever, you didn't get the time, whatever, but big deal. Go run the next race.
But to go back into, the heart of it, it's just, there's a lot of behind things that you have to do. You have to go to the park, you got to have the contract, do everything. There's requirements they want, with, workers and, certain things they want the park done, and then going through, Porta Johns, the parking situation, making sure we have the buses coming,
Shuttles.
What's up?
All
The
of the
shuttles, shuttles.
I remember when I was in high school, you could just park right in there.
Yep.
Dude,
Right there,
now forget it. So you have that. Then you have, working with Runners High, making sure that, New Balance is helping, doing things. So there's a lot more into it. And, like Theo helps with a lot of it. Rob helps it. So, I mean, there's a group of us that are all working together on the same page. So it makes life easier. But it was a rough one this year, but you know what I mean? Listen, it was unfortunate, but it does happen next year. There'll be chip timing. That was one of the things we were hoping to get this year, but it just didn't work out. But we've had successful meets for the last number of years. It just this year, it just didn't work out.
I remember running at a ton of successful short coaches meets throughout my 2 years of running XC. So yeah, so the 2 years I ran there, they were run just fine. So things happen.
And the course is so much faster now. I mean, the park does
complain about it all the time.
Yeah, I mean, but they take great care of the course. Like they build it up. They make sure.
When did that start?
Probably. Oh man, let's see.
I remember running over roots and battling some branches on the way down. And
I would probably say definitely within the last 10 years, they've really have. I mean, they're out. Like I was up there Friday the day before. They're checking the course. They're blowing the leaves. They're making sure everything's clear. Like I remember even when I used to run back there, there'd be layers of leaves. You couldn't tell what was underneath.
And you didn't know if there was mud. You would step in, it would be mud. It would be stuck on your spikes for like the next half mile, kicking it off. Yeah,
it's definitely faster now when it rains than it was when we were like when it used to rain there. It was just a mud bath. Now,
the whole first hill was a mudslide.
The whole first water running down. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they do a great job with that, and they're very good with letting us be able to, move things, adjust things. The park has been very supportive, which is nice.
I mean, it washes the hands though, right? Because Homedale Park has a ton of notoriety from all the successful meets, from short coaches to states and things like that. So, Homedale Park's on the map because of how well they work with.
And it got voted hardest course in America from Citius Mag.
Yeah. So there you go. So you're meet directing at the hardest course of America. So.
Yeah, great.
So before we jump out of here, I want to ask you the same question I ask all of our guests. If you had a magic wand or, a magical thing, and you could change something about the sport of track and field XC to make it a more casual, fan-friendly sport, to make it bigger, more expansive, and, eventually get these great athletes that we're coaching to get to the pro level and have a real pro experience, unlike our pros now who barely get paid, what would you change in order to make that happen?
Ooh, oh man. See, that's hard to put in because, if you have cross country, you want to be able to see the races. Like that's something that you want to be able to see. Yeah, drones.
The drones following them. That would be fun.
But then track and field is just, the thing is now there's so many different meets, but just trying to find where let's see how I put it. If coaches would take their egos out of themselves, like there's coaches that are just, it's about them. They, it's always about me. If some of them would just sit there and let, a handful of coaches be like, all right, we want to run this type of meet. We want to have your type of kid just run, not, just put a championship race together with a group of athletes. that might help too. But so many people are worried, well, we can't do it because we have this coming up or that coming up. If you have an opportunity to run everybody and you're trying to run fast, why don't you? And that's something that's like happened over the years. Like some of the local teams that we have where we'll run a meet and we're like, all right, we want to try to run so and so. Let's try to put together this group of kids and let them run fast. And I think that would be kind of exciting to do, but it's so hard now there's so many damn meets.
Yeah. So I have a question. I don't know how much you follow like pro level. Do you feel that like some of these high school kids are seeing that like at the pro level and even college level, there's been a lack of like racing? It's more all about time trials. Like people now don't care if they get 12th place, but they run like a 3:51, I feel like that everything now is about time. And that's how athletes get paid. But we've lost kind of that sense of like, let's just go out there and race. Time doesn't matter. Let's just go run.
Yeah. Here's an example of like how maybe I made a mistake with Marco. Like we had a game plan. We knew how to race and do that, but he went to college and he didn't realize how much it was going to be a sit and kick race, and Marco had wheels, but at that level it was like, whew, so like, maybe I should have back when I had him. All right, let's sit back and wait and kick. But at a certain point, after a while, it's boring.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially when you're that good. Like, and it is tough, especially Marco going to Notre Dame and Kyle going to Michigan. You look around and every single kid there is a state champion. Every single kid there is a national competitor, maybe one national. So it's like you walk in there and you're Marco, and not to be mean, but you're not special because everyone there is you.
No. And you know what?
Like it's incredible.
And that's something, at least, as a runner, and that's one of the things I explain to all these guys. Cause there's kids that are cocky and they're like, oh yeah, I'm going here. Yeah. But let's see how your cockiness carries over when you're like with kids that are faster than you, who are whatever. And that was something I always tell them, like, listen, you just got to be humble, be yourself, and just go and work, because there's going to be kids that are even better than you, even though you have these times. So, that's just something, that was neat to see that they were able to handle, because you have kids that, oh, I'm the best. And they go to, somewhere and they're like, oh, wait, I'm not the best anymore. And then they're complaining about the coach. And
you're going to run Syracuse XC thinking it's Syracuse, and then they're a nationally competitive team. And you have Justin Knight running next to you, and you're like, holy shit.
Yeah. What am I doing?
One of my favorite things, Ian Hahn was one of my mentors. And when I was a freshman, he's sitting there and I ran pretty well. And I started training with him a little sophomore year. And we're running. He goes, one of the best advice I got from when I got to Penn State, all you high school kids think you've done something. And then you realize you get here, you haven't done shit. Shut up and run. Yeah. And I was like, and he's like, take that advice to heart, because whatever you do in high school does not matter in college.
Well, it's like you go to a team and you're like, well, I'm New Jersey state champ. And they're like, everyone in here is a state champ. Like everyone in this room is some sort of state champ. So it's
or you get a kid that wants to go to run in college and you're like, go for it. And they're like, well, I was MVP at this high school, but MVP, like what?
And then you're looking, it's like this other kid goes, he's like, yeah, I'm 5K national champion. Go away at New Balance. Like, who are you? Like, who are you? I ran sub 14 in high school. Your 15 is nothing to me. Go away. Like,
well, I was like, we had a kid when I was down at UK that, he was like a Group 1 champion, but he was like a 201 half miler. And he's, because he was from Kentucky, they go, all right, you can come on as a walk-on, but you have to hit. And, he had to run a sub like 125 and a 600. And he's just not even training. He's like, oh, I'll be able to. Never even came close, but he just had that attitude. Well, and I'm like, I was a college transfer and I had run well faster than that. And I'm like, ran faster than that in high school. But I'm like, dude, you got to get it together. And he's like, no, I'll be fine. And everybody's like, okay. And just, but that's just, the approach, or, even just, everybody's got a reason, or, or you're great for a reason, but come on now, be realistic.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, Coach, thank you so much for coming on. This was a freaking awesome show, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. This was fun. I'm glad I did this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a tier South guy through and through, but living here in Point, I love seeing those boys run. Sometimes I'll go over to the track, and then they'll be training. And it's just great to see Ocean County. I mean, we've had so many great coaches on the show, so now I feel like I just root for so many teams now because we've had so many wonderful guests, and it's just great to talk to all you guys. So thanks for coming on, Coach.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks, guys.
So once again, he is Coach Brian Decker. He's the head coach for cross country over at Point Boro. We'll be over at Brick Memorial for indoor and outdoor, head coaching the girls and boys over there. Is there any Instagram, Twitter for your team, or that any of the boys might have known? Because I know everyone has one now, but whether the coach knows about it, usually the kids are just running it.
I got nothing, that's, and
we'll go search it for you.
It just shows how old, I am. And I don't even know, how even any of that works. And then
you're better off. Honestly, you are better off.
Even the podcast, when when Hyatt reached out, I said to my wife, I'm like, podcast, what do I have to do? She's like, are you talk? I go, no, I'm a guest. She's like, oh, it's easy. I was like, okay, phew. I just, I mean, the kids make fun of me. I still write down, hi, you give the workouts, there I am writing. They're like, well, why don't you do this or do that? I'm like, no.
Did you tell any of the athletes you're going to be on a podcast?
Yes, they were like, what? And I'm like, you stop, guys. They're so funny.
You got to tell them to listen. Hey.
No, they will.
Got to tell them to listen.
No, I'm like, well, what are you going to talk about? Coaching and running? They're like, oh, I'm like, yeah, it's this,
Talk about the stock market.
Yeah, we're just gonna talk straight politics on a Talking in Ovals. Let's do that. But again, he's Coach Brian Decker. You can want to go visit him over at Point Boro, do it. We wish you best of luck, in the counties and conference. Thank and you. Everything coming up. And you guys are going to be strong. You're going to be tough. We'll definitely be rooting for you at sectionals to go and do something special. So once again, he's Dave. I'm Alex. If you like what you heard, give us a like, share, follow, subscribe, rate us 5-star, Spotify and iTunes. Spread this word of mouth. Go find us on the socials at Talking in Ovals. And we will be back next week for another fun show. So long, y'all.